Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are wading into waters that sound incredibly dry on paper, but are actually just teeming with drama, wasted millions, and a surprising amount of human psychology.
Yeah.
We are looking at the pharmaceutical supply chain.
It sounds so niche, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But when you really peel back the layers, it's a story about how humans handle change.
And how we handle, or more often mishandle, technology. I want to start with a number that, frankly, I didn't believe when I first read it in the source material. I mean, we're talking about an industry that is incredibly well-funded.
Right. Full of some of the smartest people on the planet.
Exactly, and yet when they try to modernize their supply chains with digital tools, they just hit a wall.
It's a pretty brutal wall, too.
So the statistic is this. 89% of pharmaceutical leaders have a digital transformation strategy. They have the PowerPoint deck, they've got the budget approval, they're ready to go. But 70% of those initiatives fail.
7-0.
70%. That is a staggering failure rate. I mean, if a car manufacturer recalled 70% of their cars, they'd be out of business.
It's just this massive gap. You have nearly everyone agreeing on the destination. They all know they need to be digital. But the vast majority are, like, driving the car into a ditch before they even get there.
Right.
And the source material we're looking at today, which is a strategic framework report on this exact issue, it makes a very bold claim about why that's happening.
And this is the mystery we're trying to solve today. Because my assumption, and I think most people's assumption would be, well, the technology just wasn't ready. The software was buggy or something.
And that's the trap. The report says it explicitly. The problem is not the technology. We have better sensors, faster cloud computing, smarter AI than ever before. The tools are fine. The problem is the mindset.
The digital mindset.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And so the mission of this deep dive is to decode what that actually means. Because mindset, can sound a bit fluffy, right?
Yeah, like a corporate buzzword you put on a poster.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
But in this context, it's a fundamental shift in how people think, how they behave, and how they make decisions in an environment that is heavily, heavily regulated.
And we should really stress that regulated part. This is not a startup making a photo-sharing app. If you mess up in pharma, the FDA shows up, and patient safety is at risk.
Oh, the stakes are incredibly high. And that pressure creates a very specific type of behavior, which the report calls the traditional mindset. And it contrasts this with the digital mindset.
I found this contrast so fascinating. The traditional mindset is described as being inspection ready. Now, to me, that sounds like a good thing. Shouldn't you always be ready for an inspection?
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Uh-huh.
But think about what inspection ready feels like in real life. Imagine you're a teenager and your parents are coming to visit your messy apartment in, like, an hour.
Oh, that's not ready. That's panic. That's shoving dirty laundry under the bed and just spraying air fresheners everywhere.
Precisely. It's episodic. You aren't actually clean, you're just frantic. In pharma, inspection ready often means this huge scramble before an audit. You're gathering papers, checking logs, backfilling signatures.
Just trying to pass the test on that one day.
Exactly.
Oh.
It's stressful and it's reactive.
Okay, so what's the alternative then?
The digital mindset is being always data ready. You aren't scrambling because the data isn't hidden away in binders or locked in a filing cabinet somewhere. It's transparent, it's real-time, it's continuous. You don't have to get ready for an audit because you are compliant every single minute of every day.
That sounds like a dream state for a compliance officer. But getting there means moving from gut feeling to data-driven. And the source material lays out this tale of two scenarios that illustrates this perfectly. And I want to spend a minute here because scenario A is painful. It's the kind of story that makes CFOs wake up in a cold sweat.
It is a classic tragedy of corporate spending.
So, scenario A, large pharma company, deep pockets. They decide to solve their supply chain problems by just writing a massive check. They invest $50 million in a new cloud-based platform.
The shiny new toy.
The shiniest. And technically, it was flawless. The code was clean, the interface was modern, they deploy it, cut the ribbon, pop the champagne. But 18 months later, they look at the usage stats. Utilization is at 40%.
Which means more than half the company is basically pretending the system doesn't exist.
It's worse than that. They aren't just ignoring it, they are actively working around it. The operators on the floor are using sticky notes, Excel spreadsheets, whiteboards, because they felt the new system just didn't reflect how they actually did their job.
And that is where the $50 million evaporates. You bought a Ferrari, but everyone is still walking because nobody taught them how to drive stick, and the roads aren't even paved for it. It's a technology-first approach. They thought the tool would fix the culture.
Which brings us to scenario B. Mid-sized biotech. Much smaller budget. Probably couldn't afford the Ferrari even if they wanted it.
Right. But their approach was completely inverted. Before they wrote a single line of code or bought a server, they spent 6 months just talking to the operators. They engaged the people who actually wear the lab coats and drive the forklifts.
6 months of just talking? I bet management was getting impatient, like, where's my software?
Probably.
Yeah.
But they were doing hands-on training. They were setting up digital champions, people on the floor who could advocate for this new way of working.
And the payoff.
95% utilization. They hit their return on investment in just 14 months. The technology wasn't necessarily better. It might have been simpler, but the outcome was just night and day because the people were ready for it.
That distinction that you can't buy your way out of a culture problem, that really sets the stage for the rest of this report. It breaks the solution down into 3 pillars: data, talent, and technology. Let's start with the first one, data-driven culture.
This is the foundation.
The report specifically attacks the whole concept of intuition. And I have to play devil's advocate here. We usually respect intuition, right? The seasoned captain who knows the weather is turning before the radar even sees it.
In art or romance, sure, trust your gut. In a complex global supply chain, intuition is a trap. The report calls this managing by trauma.
Managing by trauma.
Think about it. A supply chain manager creates safety stock. That's the extra inventory you keep just in case. Why do they do that? Often it's because they vividly remember that one time, 4 years ago, when they ran out of a critical vial and got yelled at by a VP.
So they hoard inventory to protect themselves from that happening again.
Right. That's fear, not math. A data-driven culture looks at the statistical probability of demand. It doesn't care about your feelings. It just cares about the patterns. Another great example they give is maintenance. Traditionally, you might service a machine every 1,000 hours because, well, the manual says so.
It's like changing the oil in your car every 3,000 miles.
Exactly. But does the car really need it? Maybe. Maybe not. In a data-driven setup, you have sensors listening to the machine. Maybe it's running perfectly and can go 1,500 hours. Or maybe it's vibrating weirdly and is about to explode at hour 800.
The data tells you the actual truth about the equipment's health, not just the date on the calendar.
Precisely.
But to get that truth, the people on the floor need to actually see the data. There was this incredible example in the sources about a manufacturer who decided to democratize their data, so they gave dashboards to everyone, all 2,000 employees.
Which is usually terrifying for management. What if they see something they shouldn't?
Right. But within 6 months, the frontline operators, the people actually touching the machines, they found $500,000 in annual savings.
Wow.
Just because they could finally see the process data for themselves.
They can see the inefficiencies that were totally invisible before. It empowers them. But, and this is a big but, accessibility has a dangerous twin sister, and her name is governance.
Oh boy, governance. That sounds like the part of the meeting where everyone starts checking their email.
It sounds boring, I know. But imagine this. You decide to merge your holiday card list with your spouse's list. You have Grandma listed as Nana. Your spouse has her down as Grandmother Smith. And maybe she's in there a third time as Jima.
And you end up sending her 3 cards. Or 0. Because the system just gets confused and crashes.
Exactly. Now multiply that by 50 global factories, thousands of suppliers, millions of product codes. If vial type A is called something slightly different in the warehouse system than it is in the shipping system, you have chaos.
So governance is just cleaning up the contact list, basically.
It's called Master Data Management, or MDM. And yeah, it's creating a single source of truth. The report mentions a company that unified their product master data and saved $500,000 a year just by eliminating all that manual reconciliation work.
No more people sitting in a room comparing spreadsheets to figure out if Nana is Grandma.
No more of that.
Okay, so you have clean data. You have the truth. But data doesn't make decisions, people do. And this brings us to the second pillar, talent. And honestly, the report paints a bit of a grim picture here. It talks about a bi-directional gap.
It's a language barrier, essentially. On one side of the room, you've got the data scientists. These people are brilliant. They dream in Python and machine learning, but they don't know GMP.
Good manufacturing practice.
Right, the strict regulations. So the data scientist builds a model that is mathematically perfect, but completely illegal to use in a drug factory. Then on the other side of the room, you have the pharma experts. They know the chemistry, the compliance. They've been doing this for 20 years, but they lack digital fluency.
They look at a dashboard and they just see colored lines.
Or worse, they see a threat. And this is the biggest hurdle the report identifies: resistance. Why do 70% of initiatives fail? Because people push back.
And it's not just stubbornness, it's fear. The report's pretty candid about the whole "will AI replace my job" anxiety.
Which is a rational fear. We see the headlines. But the report argues that in this specific context, the reality is a bit different. Digital tools here aren't replacing the operator, they're shifting the work.
How so?
Well, think about the day-to-day. Right now, an operator might spend 4 hours of a shift just manually writing numbers into a paper logbook and then typing them into a spreadsheet. It's boring, it's prone to error, and it's low-value work.
Okay.
The digital tool automates that. So now, the operator spends those 4 hours troubleshooting issues the system flagged or, optimizing the line.
Because they become problem solvers instead of scribes.
Exactly. But, and this is huge, you have to sell that vision. You can't just walk in and say, good news, here's a robot. You have to use what the report calls WIFM.
Yeah, IFM.
What's in it for me?
It sounds selfish, but it's human nature. If I'm an operator, don't tell me the software increases shareholder value. I don't care. Tell me, hey, this dashboard means you don't have to walk to the other end of the factory 10 times a night to check the pressure gauge. You can see it right here on your tablet. That's a tangible win. Speaking of learning new ways, the report mentions a learning model called 70-20-10. And I think I've been doing learning wrong my whole life because I always thought it was 100% sitting in a classroom listening to a lecture.
Most of us think that. But for adult learning in a digital context, that formal training, the classroom stuff, that's only 10%.
Just 10%.
Just 10%. The report says 70% of learning happens on the job, actually using the tools, making mistakes, figuring it out. And the other 20%, that's peer mentorship.
So is that where we bridge that gap between the data geek and the chemist?
Exactly. You pair them up. You have the data scientist shadow the operator to understand why the machine makes that weird noise. You have the operator sit with the data scientist to understand what the algorithm is actually predicting. It creates cross-pollination.
I love that visual. So we've got data, we've got talent. Now finally we can talk about the shiny stuff. Pillar 3, integrated technology. And there is a concept here called the golden triangle.
The golden triangle is people, process, and technology. And here is the stat that just blows that scenario A $50 million investment out of the water. The report says successful organizations invest 70% of their resources in people and process and only 30% in the technology itself.
That seems backwards. The software is usually the expensive line item on the bill.
It is. But if you flip that ratio, if you spend 70% on the tech and skimp on the people, you fail.
Yeah.
Technology is the enabler. It's not the solution. If you put a Ferrari engine in a go-kart,
You crash.
you crash fast.
Yeah.
You have to build the car, the people and processes to handle the engine.
One thing I really appreciated in this section was the discussion on legacy systems, because pharma is an old industry. Some of these factories have been running for decades. I imagine there is software running on Windows 95 somewhere in a basement.
Oh, absolutely. There are screens with green text on black backgrounds still running critical processes.
Yeah.
Now, the instinct for a digital transformer is to say, rip it out, replace it all.
Burn it down and start fresh.
The report says, do not do that. That is incredibly risky. Those old systems hold decades of institutional knowledge recipes, protocols, the history of how things are made. If you rip and replace, you lose the brain of the factory.
So what's the fix? Duct tape.
Sophisticated duct tape, yeah. It's called integration. You use APIs to connect the old brain to the new nervous system. You let the old system keep chugging along, but you build a modern layer on top that can talk to it. It's evolution, not revolution.
And to manage all of this, the data, the people, the old clunky computers, the report introduces a specific character, the orchestrator, the Chief Digital Officer, or CDO.
This is a role that has really emerged in the last decade.
Yeah.
And the report makes a very specific, very important point about where this person sits in the hierarchy.
They can't just be a department head.
No. They must report directly to the CEO.
Why is that reporting line so critical?
Because digital transformation is a silo buster by definition. If the CDO reports to the Chief Information Officer, the rest of the company just thinks, oh, that's an IT project. If they report to operations, it's just a factory thing. To change the culture across the whole business, they need the mandate that comes from the very top.
The report highlights Bertrand Bodson at Novartis as sort of the poster child for this.
Yes. Novartis hired him. And notably, he came from the retail world, not pharma. And he reported directly to the CEO. His job wasn't fix the computers. His job was to transform Novartis into a leading medicines company powered by data.
Wow.
That elevation of the role signals to everyone from the janitor to the VP that this is the future of the company.
So knowing all this, the mindset, the pillars, the leadership, how is the industry actually doing? If we handed out report cards today, what's the GPA?
Isn't that great? The industry average for digital maturity is about a 2.6 out of 5.0.
A 2.6. That's a solid C minus.
It's middle of the road. But the dangerous part is that the gap is widening. The leaders, the companies getting a 4.0 are accelerating because they've figured out the culture piece. The laggards are still treating this as a software purchase, and they are falling further and further behind.
So let's bring this home for our listener. Maybe they work in pharma, maybe they work in a completely different field, but this pattern of tech versus culture is everywhere. What is the takeaway?
The roadmap is clear. Start with the unsexy stuff, data governance. Clean up that contact list. Then focus on the quick wins to convince the skeptics. Prove that what's in it for me, and invest heavily in the people, not just the tools.
And the why is pretty compelling, too. We aren't just doing this to be cool. The report cites 30% faster decision cycles, 20 to 40% cost reductions.
And ultimately, safer drugs reaching patients faster. That's the real bottom line.
Going through all of this, I'm left with a final thought. We spend so much time talking about AI, cloud, IoT, all these buzzwords as competitive advantages. We have the best AI. But if every company can buy the same software...
Then the technology isn't the advantage anymore, it's a commodity.
Exactly. If the tool's available to everyone, the only true competitive advantage left is your organization's ability to adapt its culture to use it.
That is the profound truth of this era. The tech is the easy part. The mindset is the differentiator.
So the question we're leaving you with today is this. Are you just upgrading your software, or are you upgrading your thinking?
It's a question worth asking in every boardroom and on every factory floor.
Think about that as you head into your next meeting. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you next time.